Well, the title of this YouTube video is going to be Boomer Candy, and we're surely going to get some clicks. Um,
Yeah.
so we should should hit our all-time high with this one. But in case you didn't notice, we just we hit 50 subscribers on our YouTube channel, so
All right.
we're still
Trending.
not a big deal, but we're getting up there.
Yeah,
So
we're only what 900,000 away from making our first dollar.
yeah, exactly. Well, we're not even monetized, so we got some work to do. But I did notice that 50% of
Well,
the people
between us and the Kardashians, we have like 10 million followers.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Exactly. I will say is that half the people who watch this show are not subscribed. So there's that. So welcome to episode 115 of Farm to Markets. Today we are talking about longevity planning, boomer candy, multivitamins, Disney, and moving to Montana. So retirement planners have long argued for preparing to live to 95 when planning your retirement. However, HealthView Services, a maker of healthcare cost projection software, says that's not helpful. Their data suggests that most Americans, even healthy ones, rarely make it to 95, and financial planners should rethink using 95 to calculate retirement plans. Financial planners counter that it's far better to plan for longer than you need than exhaust your savings. What do you guys think? Do you think we should be planning for like 100, or do you think we should stop at 95?
Well, I think somewhere between 95 and 100 is probably the smart thing to do. I think anybody who underestimates their life expectancy by just a couple of years is gonna really regret not having any money left. If you plan to 85 and you live to 87, and you follow some of the advice that I've been seeing out there in the media lately that says you should die with $0 in your retirement accounts. Well, if you plan to die at 85 and you live to 87 or 88, you have 3 years of $0 and being miserable at the end of things. So I personally, anyways, maybe other people differ, but I can't imagine anybody is gonna have a good time running out of money while they're still alive. So I would say overplan and then die earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not taking a position. Like, I'm not picking a particular age out of a hat and say, let's plan to 95, let's plan to 105. The article said that financial planners say plan farther and plan longer. Do you agree? Yeah, absolutely. Plan longer than you anticipate. Almost, I would almost encourage folks to plan like they're going to live forever. I like to think of retirement as your nest egg is you're living off of the golden egg. You're not touching the golden goose. So in theory, your portfolio should be able to provide a comfortable lifestyle for you in perpetuity if you are Ricky Bobby and you live to 315 years old. So as retirees, they grow older, healthcare expenses become more significant portion of their budgets. So like Alex said, if you run out of money when you're old, that's about the time that your healthcare costs are going to be the most expensive. It's not going to be a pretty ending for you. So plan longer. If you plan longer, that approach could also enhance the quality of your life in retirement. With the anticipation of a longer life, retirees might be inclined to engage in more healthy activities or well-being, like regular exercise, healthy eating, continuous learning, things like that. So I think it's more of a mindset thing. Always plan for longer. Like we say in the Boy Scouts, when you're out camping, always plan like you're going to be out an extra couple of nights. Same goes for retirement.
I don't think I ever used an age as the basis for financial planning. I always just used the 4% rule, or early on when interest rates were significantly higher, I would use the 6% rule. But essentially, like Drew said, I tended to plan that they're going to live forever, and then leave a nice nest eggs to go to their charity or to their children or to their beneficiaries. I think that a lot of people just want this formula that if you follow the recipe, everything will be, hunky dory. And I think what value investment advisors and financial planners like you two gentlemen do is that you do course corrections along the way to make sure that, hey, at this particular bend in the road, we should be going 45 miles an hour. And in this stretch of Nevada, it's perfectly okay to open it up and go 75. And I think what people need is they just need somebody with the credibility to help them with those kinds of decisions.
Yeah, there's a number of big variables in retirement planning. One of them is how long you're going to live. If you could tell us, it's pretty easy math. We could tell you how much money you need for the rest of your life, and then job wouldn't be that hard. But when you're going to die, and then what your health's going to be like at the when you do get into your 80s and possibly your 90s, and if you're going to need long-term care or not. Those are some pretty big questions. So what we don't want to do is in your 60s or 70s, we don't want to be, putting excess, stress on your portfolio, thinking that you're only going to live to 95. So in our plans, we usually bump them out to, 98, or 100. And we're not just pulling those numbers out of the hat. I mean, according to JP Morgan, at least for a married couple, there's a 19% chance that at least one of them is going to live to age 100. And that's a pretty 20% is actually a pretty significant chance, given the fact that you might live to 100. I mean, at least one of you, there's a 20% chance that one of you might do that. And that's not something that you want to just hope doesn't happen in your retirement plan. So I think by pushing it out as long as possible and having a plan for that, I think that's the safe way to do it. Drew summed it up very succinctly, but we want to plan for just in case you do end up healthier longer than you thought you did. But
I've heard you say this in financial planning meetings, Tom. So this is a Tom-ism, but you don't want to try to land the plane right the second it runs out of gas.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to do that. It's you don't want to do that.
Don't do that.
But 13 years of experience will tell me that.
On the other hand, you don't want to die with canteens full of water either in the desert. It's like the old saying is that guys walking around and they find him dead of dehydration. And he's got 2 full canteens because he was saving it for when he needed it.
Yeah,
there's a sweet spot, and if financial advisors continually tell people to take less and less and less out, they'll go find somebody who'll say, "Okay, you can take out more." So as Aristotle would say, there's a golden mean in their advice somewhere.
Yeah, no, you're right. And yes, and it's very specific about, because telling people like, hey, go ahead and spend money, that's an easier decision than that's an easier conversation than being like, hey, look, how are you going to pay for the next 5 years?
Right.
But, right now I think like Medicare or Medicaid pays for like some staggering amount of long-term care insurance at this point. So for most people, I would suggest aim for longer. And then if it gets to the point where you have a lot of money stacking up, and you want to ask your financial advisor if you can take a trip to Europe, that's an easier thing to do than how are we going to pay for the next 5 years of your healthcare costs or whatever. So.
Well, I hope folks didn't take that from our comments that we want you to die with water in your canteen. Follow the 4% rule. Live. We want you to have the best quality of life for as long as you possibly can. But if folks, and like you said, that it's course correction. There's a lot of variables. We're constantly making tweaks to a financial plan. But if they have 500 gallons of water and they're strapped to their back and they're 95 years old, you can certainly afford to offload some of that. But you have to be prudent. You have to be reasonable.
Yeah. When you're making large blanket statements, it's best to be prudent. But you're right. All right. All right. So baby boomers aren't ready to walk away from the stock market, are flocking to a hot new class of funds affectionately called boomer candy that seek to ease the pain of market swings. The most popular of these funds is called the Equity Premium Income Fund. And it basically invests in a portfolio of large cap stocks while also selling options contracts on those shares. The fund generates higher dividend income than is typical in a stock fund, sometimes 8 to 10%, but they also cap investor gains and carry chunky fees. Buffer funds, another popular strategy that uses derivatives, claim to guard against investor losses up to a point while limiting potential gains as well. Similar class of funds even advertises 100% downside protection when certain conditions are met. What's your thought on this? On these? On these boomer candy funds?
Well, the article went into the dividends that they're paying, and they are a lot lower than they were a few years ago, when some of those numbers like 8, 10, 12% were more accurate. I looked up a couple of them, and they're closer to like 6 to 8% now. Still pretty good returns, but a lot of it just sounds like an overly complicated way to get slightly above average dividends. I had not really heard of these until Tom sent us the article about them. I couldn't see any immediate like shocking red flags, especially if you kind of understand what you're investing in. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're using it to maybe diversify a little bit away from a more conservative bond fund, or traditionally balanced moderate allocation fund, something like that. I guess since I just heard about them, I don't have too much positive or negative to say other than if the returns are attractive and you're fine with the risk and you understand what you're investing in, okay. But if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So just be aware that if somebody's promising you the moon, you're probably not getting it.
I agree with that. Anytime there's the word guarantee in a world of uncertainty, you should take it with a grain of salt, and kind of be wary. I'm not questioning the legitimacy of these products, but you might be better off doing something else. It's almost like an actuary when they're writing a life insurance policy. If they make these guarantees, it's good for them. So when they're doing these buffered ETFs and these buffered funds and these structured products and in interval funds, there is a catch, and basically you're assuming less performance, and it's taking the risk out of the equation. So there's a time and place for these things. If you don't want to have to stomach market volatility, it's not your thing. You don't want to have to think about these, and you're willing to sacrifice some performance from it. It might be a good deal, but they're complicated. They charge high premiums. Now, most of the time, it's better to do it yourself or to hire a professional to do it for you.
Call them boomer candy, but 30 years ago, you could have called them Bob Hope generation candy. Really what it is people living on a fixed income candy. And what people are looking for is they're trying to get the highest amount of money streaming into their checking account every month with the lowest amount of risk. It sells really easy to people who are risk averse in retirement living on a fixed income. But the reality is the performance of these things have been dismal at best. 25 years ago when they came out with called alternative investments. So alternative investments and boomer candy, they're exactly the same thing. It just changed the labeling. This, boomer candy is the new Coke, and alternative investments was classic Coke, but they're essentially both the same thing. And ultimately, as Drew alluded, they are very, very good for the financial services companies that package these things. Because what they're doing is that they're going to keep 12% of the return from your investment portfolio, and they're going to give you 6 or 8 of it. So I've never been a big fan. I've been to a lot of different conferences where the wholesalers will come in and give a real pitch for them. I get all excited and get a warm feeling over my body when I come back and thinking about showing it to my clients. But on the plane ride home, I start reading through the prospectus and going, this is garbage. And I went right back to doing the plain vanilla stuff that served our clients for so long. I'd say stay away from this stuff.
Yeah, a fund that's been around for 4 years and promises you most of the upside and very little of the downside while giving you an 8% to 10% dividend. What could possibly go wrong? It's kind of like Social Security. I would speculate that there is a place in people's portfolio for this, but not. I wouldn't put everything in it. A lot of these things come up with lockup periods. I don't know if anybody said this, but a lot of times you have to keep your money in the fund for at least a year. If you pull your money out before then, you don't get any of the benefits that are advertised. So it's with the buffered funds and the interval funds, it's pretty much the same thing. the options contracts that are in the accounts are not particularly complicated. They can be, but some of them are just like they put like a call or a put on the S&P 500 or something like that. But still, again, they've only been around 4 years, and they haven't seen a lot of market stress. So, who knows what happened if everybody decides to like break the terms of the contract and redeem their money early? Like, who knows what would happen if people tried to start selling these things? We don't know. So, it's if you want to put in your portfolio, fine. I'd put a little bit in your portfolio, and then over time, if they live up to their promises, then maybe add some more. Realistic, the boomer. I would say that boomer candy, like tax-free municipal bonds bought in the '80s, that was boomer candy. Because like I see a lot of portfolios that they were paying like 7 or 8% on these tax-free municipal bonds. And I always get people calling me asking me if what tax-free municipal bonds we have, and it's not as good as it used to be. And the state of Montana issues very little debt. So if you live in Montana trying to find a municipal bond, it's not there's not a lot to choose from. But that's what I would say is boomer candy, is like tax-free municipals.
If this is boomer candy, then I suppose that crypto would be like Gen Z millennial candy, which I have even less tolerance for.
I would say it's like Gen Z, like that doesn't crack cocaine because it's not good for you.
It's not even candy. Yeah.
It's the hard
gateway
stuff.
drug. Yeah.
You ruin your life. All right. Okay, so that was boomer candy. Okay, so a huge new study on the side effects of taking, or excuse me, not the side effects, sorry. So a huge new study on the effects of taking daily multivitamins has concluded that they won't help you live longer. The National Institute of Health combined date study the National Institute of Health studied almost 400,000 adults, factoring in diet, exercise, income, and many more variables. Aside from no real benefits to longevity, benefits like staving off cognitive decline or vision issues have been found. People who take multivitamins are also likely to have better diets and tend to be healthier and tend to be at healthier weights. In general, scientists seem to agree that while multivitamins are better than nothing, getting complete nutrition via your diet is probably the best way to go. Do you take multivitamins, and do you think they work?
Yeah, I've generally always taken one, going back to being a kid and eating a Flintstone vitamin. So generally always have. For the most part, I just look at them as a way to plug holes in my diet. If I have a particularly bad week or whatever, just eat a bunch of junk food. Doesn't hurt to make sure you're at least getting 100% daily value. Most of the vitamins and minerals you need. That being said, a lot of people I've known growing up and as an adult have taken multivitamins, and the ones who are otherwise unhealthy but take multivitamins are still unhealthy, and the ones who are healthy who take multivitamins are still pretty healthy. So I think it's it's a supplement. It's in the name itself. It might help you get vitamin D in the winter, when you're not going outside or something, or supplement calcium, if you have bone density problems or something. But overall, they're not going to make you healthy, but they might help fill holes in your diet, or like the study said, stave off some age-related problems or diet-related issues.
There's multivitamins in my house. I don't really take them. Most of it is for my 4-year-old, and I don't think it makes a hill of beans difference in terms of health. Makes my wife feel better. My wife, my daughter, her diet mostly consists of dino nuggets and pirate's booty.
Sure.
Even lack of my best efforts. I think it's kind of a placebo. I agree with this. Correlation, causation, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I think healthy people tend to be healthier and unhealthy people tend to be unhealthier. But I do believe in the placebo effect. I do it myself sometimes where, if for a race or something, I'll drink water and tell myself like, oh, this is the special water. This is the high performance thing, and just kind of getting that, positive mental attitude. Maybe with multivitamins, you think I'm healthier, I have a better outlook on my health. So I don't see any harm in it. They're not that expensive. And I will say that multivitamin, the taste has come a long way since the Flintstone vitamin. Ellie takes these gummy things, and sometimes I'll sneak one just because they taste good.
I have never taken, well, I wouldn't say I've never taken them, but I've never purchased multivitamins. I think Drew's mother probably bought them and gave them to his kids, but I think it's more an emotional thing that parents buy for their kids to assuage their guilt for letting them eat Dino Nuggets. I think it's kind of like the old commercials I used to see as a kid where they'd say, the breakfast cereals that they're targeting children. They'll say, this cereal, Granny's Poopy Flakes, it's part of a well-balanced diet. And they show the bowl of the Poopy Flakes, and it's surrounded by like orange juice and some grapefruit, some bacon and eggs. And to Alex's point, I think the kinds of people who take multivitamins, they're already doing healthy things on the side. So it's okay to take the multivitamin and have it do absolutely nothing because you're going to be fine because of the other activities that you're doing.
Yeah. To the point, I think Alex said right. I think there's a time and a place for vitamins. People who are deficient in certain things, they need to take vitamins. And from what I've read, they actually work. When I was in the sports medicine department at both Bethel and UND, there was a saying that, if you take a lot of vitamins, basically it's a good way to make expensive urine. So, you're basically flushing it down the toilet. And most of the research I read on healthy people taking vitamins that they're ineffective, that's stuff from like 10 years ago. I haven't looked at it since. But, but I also did read is that if you are deficient, like if you're iron deficient, or, I think a lot of people around here are vitamin D deficient and stuff like that, then it actually helps you. And there's the type of vitamin you take. If you take the liquid kind versus the capsules kind, I've heard that's better for digestion and that kind of stuff. So there are times when vitamins actually help, but for the most part, if you're just if you're getting everything you need, you're not deficient in everything. You're kind of wasting your money. But my wife actually took a blood test to see if she was deficient in any vitamins, and they found her that she was pretty anemic. And since she's starting to since she took that and has been taking iron, it's been helping quite a bit. So in that case, the vitamins are actually working again if you're deficient in certain areas. So
that's a good point. And I guess I kind of I do take iron supplements if I'm running a lot, just because I guess you kill a lot of red blood cells with all the pounding.
Oh,
interesting. But you can also eat red meat and spinach too.
It's true. Yeah. It is true. But it assuages my guilt.
Yeah, but you don't have to butcher a baby goat to get that iron. Not saying anything. All right, let's see here. All right, so after a string, so we have 10 minutes left here. So after a string of high profile underperformances at the box office in 2024 that have left Hollywood reeling, Disney and Pixar's latest animated feature film, Inside Out 2, has finally given Hollywood a hit. Recently crossing the $1 billion mark, it's the first film since last year's Barbie to make that much money. In spite of some accusations of LGBT themes in the movie, general audience, including those who have accused Disney of being woke in the past, seemed happy with the movie, and reviews have been mostly positive. Is Disney back, or do you think they still have work to do to win back the general audience?
Well, if you're an investor in Disney, I would say that this is at least a good sign, but there's still, this is just one positive in what has been a sea of negative for the last few years. I looked up movies. I have two kids right in the Disney demographic right now, and movies like Wish or Strange World, Turning Red, Lightyear, Onward, Elemental, and a few more. They've all come out in the last like 3 to 5 years, and most of them have either been very disappointing or they've flopped at the box office. Disney Plus is still a money loser, although they think it'll be profitable next year. We'll see. I would say that they still probably have a ways to go before they want to win back, or before they will win back general audiences. A lot of people are still pretty apprehensive about taking their kids to the movies, especially if they don't want to avoid, overt political messages or LGBTQ themes or that kind of stuff. I think Disney's going to have to show several movies in a row making money and just being a general audience pleaser before you can really say it's a turnaround. But I guess we'll find out whenever their next one comes to theaters. We'll see.
I don't think they're back by any means. I think the hole they're in is a lot bigger than any one movie can get them out of. But like Alex said, it's a great start. They're getting themselves back on a good path. They have a ways to go. It like they say, it takes 3 attaboys for one, oh no. And so I think they have a lot of good movies, to net $1 billion at the box office before they're back, so to speak.
I think sometimes you fall out of the boat and get out with a fish in your pocket, and this might be what Inside Out is in this case. Is that they were just fortunate. It wasn't like Inside Out was a great movie or anything like that. All I know is that 40 years ago, we spent a lot of money on Disney memorabilia and Disney videotapes and that sort of thing. And now that we're grandparents, I don't think we've bought any of that nonsense. At least any of the Disney stuff we've purchased for our grandkids has been, 30 years ago stuff, not recent stuff. I'm certainly a different generation, but I am a boomer, and boomers have a lot more money than Gen Z and millennials who are raising their kids. So I don't think that boomers are buying Disney stuff for their grandkids at the same level that our grandparent or our parents paid for our kids.
Yeah, I don't know that necessarily means that Disney's back, but I saw the first Inside Out with my kids, and it was actually pretty good. So I didn't mind it. I didn't see anything that I disapproved of. Maybe it's because I'm on my phone reading the Wall Street Journal during a lot of it, but so maybe something got it past me. But my wife watched it and she didn't tell me about anything, so it was actually pretty well done. It was nowhere near Moana or Encanto, which I could probably act out for you at any time of your choosing, because we've seen it so much. But I was happy to see that they had one that was relatively, it was just a fun movie. It taught kids about their emotions, which Joe, I thought you'd be all over, being a counselor. But yeah, I thought they did a good job. So I hope they have more like this coming up. So. All right. So the last question here is a gentleman who apparently is a novelist named Richard Dooling wrote an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal about why baby boomers are flocking to Montana. Mr. Dooling believes that many are flocking to Montana because they don't want to die shockingly, like on the pickleball court or the golf course. They want to die in a backcountry avalanche. According to Mr. Dooling. Do you think he's right, or do you think he was just, I don't know. What did you think about his article?
Well, I wish we had a little more time to talk about this one, but just to keep it kind of brief, I think he tells a good story, but I think reality is a bit more complicated. Until fairly recently, Montana was a much less expensive place to live than especially like the big West Coast cities where, you might be able to sell a house that you owned outright for a lot of money, buy a similar house in Montana and have a few $100,000 left over to supplement your retirement savings. So I think that was a big part of it. There's a longstanding trend where people often will try to retire in the place they wanted to go on vacation their whole life. So, whether it's a tropical beach or, a little mountain town, that kind of stuff, those are the kind of places that people actively want to be. And if you can be there, you'll try to go. And then I think a lot of, baby boomers, older generation, they were raised on a pretty steady diet of shows like Little House on the Prairie and Gunsmoke, Bonanza and whatnot. All my uncles saw that stuff. So, there is kind of this idealized version of whether, it's the West or living in the mountains or, more rural lifestyle, that kind of stuff. And then Yellowstone has, certainly rekindled that love affair with older generations as well. So I think it's a little more complicated than what he says, but I don't think he's wrong either.
I think this is just an opinion piece. It sounded like this guy was standing on his soapbox and he just wanted to express how cool he is because he lives in Montana and he does a whole bunch of cool stuff, and therefore all of his other cohorts do the same stuff. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think anyone's coming here at 85 years old to go in the backcountry to die in an avalanche. That's ridiculous. And we were talking about with some clients earlier, like 2 out of our five clients seem to be playing pickleball or golf. So I think coming back down to reality, dying on the pickleball court or the golf course is highly more likely than in an avalanche in the backcountry at that age.
I think the piece is delusional. Quite frankly, you can't swing a dead cat here in Montana in our neighborhood where people aren't playing pickleball 2 to 3 times a week. And the number of people who actually do backcountry skiing is really relatively small. Now, for those folks who are aficionados for those sorts of activities, certainly Montana offers those things. But I think the vast majority of people moving to Montana are moving away from something and not necessarily moving towards something.
Yeah. I think it was like 3 a.m, and this guy was like feeling emotional and probably should have just gone to bed and, probably had a great time in the backcountry or something like that. It's like, this is why everybody's moving to Montana. And, I thought this was way off base. It seemed like, he was, I don't know. Yeah, he was probably like, early in the morning. He hadn't slept much and was feeling emotional and wanted to write this. I don't know. So I did not agree with it. But
I don't know. I think some people have grand ideas about adventure and then they end up, just going to the pool.
yeah, I mean, I think you have grand ideas
So-
until you're out there and the bugs are biting you and it's hot and there's not enough water. And then you're like, you know what? Pickleball doesn't actually sound that bad. But or
You
there's
have
actually an
delusions of
avalanche
grandeur.
coming at you and you're just like, you know what? I don't want to do this.
Right.
I don't know. So I don't know. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for episode 115. We'll see you again sometime. So.